Thank you, Stand to you, David. I'm good. What's going on with you guys?
We're freezing.
Okay, I think we're all
I'm
together.
down here till the 21st, but I've told people that from Florida it's cold.
Yeah, well, they complain,
The temperature is a lot warmer.
You
They
get
go-
no sympathy.
they complain easily.
Me too.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna call a meeting of the Wyomissing Zoning Hearing Board to order. We're here today to hear from Quang Chu, is that pronounced?
Quang Chu.
Quang Chu, who is the owner of the property located at 438 Oley Street, identified as tax parcel number, read that. The applicant is the owner of the currently vacant building. The applicant would like to open a café bakery establishment on the first floor of the building, which is 1,288 square feet, which is a use permitted by right of the C3 zoning district per section 522 of the zoning ordinance. The applicant is seeking a variance from section 601 of the zoning ordinance to allow the second principal use, and a variance from section 609.20.d for the required number of off-street parking spaces. Zoning issues. Property is located in the C3 special commercial district and is currently a vacant building. The applicant is proposing two principal uses on the same lot, a cafe bakery on the first floor and apartment on the second floor, which is prohibited per section 601. The applicant is requesting relief from 609.20.d of the zoning ordinance per section 609.20.d of the zoning ordinance. Two parking spaces are required for each dwelling unit, and one parking space is required for every 200 square feet of that floor area. Cafe bakery is 1,288 square feet in area, therefore 7 parking spaces are required for this use. 2 additional spaces would be required for the apartment for a total of 9 off-street parking spaces required for the proposed use. The applicant noted there are currently 18 existing off-street parking spaces. The applicant is not proposing to add or remove any spaces. It is my opinion that relief from section 609.20.d is not required. Okay, before we begin, let me introduce the people at this end of the table. They're really not all at this end of the table, but first is Nick Pirelli, who is the zoning officer, commercial zoning officer. Michelle Baer, who's the secretary of the zoning hearing board and the borough manager. And John Larkin, who is an alternate to the zoning hearing board. Najim Batish, who's a member of the zoning hearing board. In the box in the middle of the table is Robert Ullman, who is a member of the zoning hearing board. And Dan Becker is our counsel, and I'm David Rothwell. I'm the chairman of the zoning hearing board. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Mr. Becker to tell us how we're going to proceed today.
Thank you, Mr. Rothman. Mr. Joe, today is your opportunity to explain to the zoning hearing board why the relief request was granted. I'm sure with your counsel sitting next to you, I'm sure that he's explained to you that process. But in short, here's how it will work. You can do that by providing testimony either for yourself or other witnesses. And you can use it. You can bring in exhibits, and you can explain, why that you think that you should grant this relief. As you're going through your testimony, or at the completion of your testimony, the board members and I will have the opportunity to ask questions, as may be certain residents of the township if they have standing as well. After all the evidence has been presented from your team, we will see if there's any residents out here that have any evidence that they want to present if they've been granted party status. If they're here, they just want to make a statement, they'll have the opportunity to do that at the end and explain their position and feelings about how we're going to proceed with this hearing today. Do you have any questions about how we intend to proceed?
No question.
Mr. Cook, do you have any questions?
No questions, Mr. Becker.
I do have a question before we go proceed, just for clarification purposes. In the application, there was a question about parking. And I heard that through the advertisement and the statement from the zoning officer that there was belief that you do not need parking. Was that correct?
I believe that's correct, Mr. Becker. We added that into the application in an abundance of caution because I do know parking is such an important issue with the borough.
So at this point in time, you're withdrawing, to the extent there is a request for parking relief, you're withdrawing that
based on Mr. Pirelli's analysis and his memo to the board, yes, we'll withdraw that request for relief.
So that means we're here for one purpose only, and that's for the second principal use.
That is correct. Just to be clear, Mr. Becker, despite the actual memorandum, I do think a use variance is necessary from section 522. I don't think Mr. Pirelli has that in there, but it's been advertised and it's part of the application. I just want to make sure because that's the permitted uses. So I think the actual apartment use is not listed within the permitted uses. So I just want to make sure we're clear. Section 522 would be a use variance. And then 601 specifically prohibits two principal uses on one lot unless you can comply with the other dimensional requirements.
All right, so you're asking for two forms of relief.
Correct.
Which is the two principal uses, which is the variance from section 601, and you're asking for relief for an apartment to be considered a permitted use, which is from section 522.
That is correct.
All right, board members, do you have any questions about that clarification?
Good.
All right, I see that there is a couple of people here in the audience. I just want to find out whether or not you are here for the purpose of just letting us know to listen to what's going on, or if you're here to provide testimony and you're looking for standing, or whether you just want to make a statement at the end to explain your thoughts.
I am a borough resident.
Okay, so let me stop you there, and if you can, for the record, please state your full name
Tammy Swigert,
and your address.
510 North 4th Street, Wyomissing.
Go ahead, Matt, please proceed.
I actually am here to provide comment if needed. My understanding, this hearing is for the apartment side of the request, but the cafe is approved, or is it for both of them?
No, it's for a second principal use in the form of an apartment. The bakery, as I understand it, is a permitted use,
Okay.
but they're asking for a second use, an apartment, which is not permitted in that district, which is, and it would be a second principal use. So that's what they're asking for, those two pieces of relief.
Okay. My comments would be more towards the bakery aspect of it, so could I just listen and then see if I do have comments at the end?
Certainly. So the question then is, are you looking for standing where you have the right to appeal the decision and present evidence? You're just looking to tell us what you want us to hear?
As a borough resident, say my piece.
Okay, thank you very much. So what will happen then, the way it will work is, they're gonna go through their entire case. We will ask questions as we're going through this. At the conclusion of all of the testimony and evidence, before we recess to an executive session, we'll give you the opportunity to voice your concerns and opinions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Thank you very much, Mr. Schweiger. All right, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, with that, we're ready to proceed. Mr. Cox?
We are, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mark Cuck, on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Chu, Cuck and Cuck, 217 North 6th Street, Reading, PA 19601. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good to see you. Happy New Year. We have a very short presentation for you this afternoon. As Mrs. Swigert had mentioned, we are proposing a cafe bakery at this particular location, 438, and it's a little bit confusing, 438 Oley Street, and it's also known as 509 North Park Road, because it's obviously a corner lot. So, Mr. Becker, I assume we'll proceed with the borough exhibits at this point, or?
We can do that right now, or we can wait till the end. We typically will do that at the end. So why don't
I just wanted to know, so I have two additional exhibits. One is a couple of Google Earth pictures, and then one is a set of the actual architectural plans. The plans are actually part of the application, but it might be easier just to mark them again for ease.
Yeah, why don't you just mark them as applicants' exhibits?
A1 and A2?
Yes, sir.
we can go ahead and swear Mr. Chu, please.
Yeah, why don't we do that? We'll swear in, that makes sense, Robert, thank you. We'll swear in Michelle Bear, McCurley, and Mr. Chu. Mr. Janik, I know that you're here, and I know you come a lot to this building. Are you looking for any standing or any issues here?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, please, then, you just swear those. Yes, so Nick, Michelle, and
Raise your
Mr. Chu.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do this. All right, thank you. Mr. Chu, would you please state your full name and spell it for Robin, and then also provide your home address, please?
Okay. My name is Quang Chu, Quang, last name Chu, and my home address is 216 Logan Avenue, Wyomissing, PA 19610.
All right, was that just feedback? I wasn't
Yeah, I
Mr.
think
Oley,
that's
right?
feedback.
I just wanted to make
Hey,
sure.
Bob, I don't know if you can hear us, but if you can just mute, because we're getting some feedback from your phone.
How are you? I don't know why I'm sitting in a very closed, soft room. I can hear you very well.
Good.
Good. Good. All right, so Mr. Chu, you've heard Mr. Becker explain the procedure here this morning, or this afternoon. We're gonna go ahead and give a little bit of testimony and present some exhibits to the board. But can you tell the board a little bit about yourself? Are you a Wyomissing native?
Yes. Yep.
So you went to Wyomissing High School.
Yep.
After that, you graduated from Millersville, is that right?
Yep. That's correct.
And your family does own a business. What business is that?
They've owned Charming Nails over on Penn Avenue for over 20 years now.
And so you're pretty familiar with Penn Avenue, grew up and worked on Penn Avenue for a good part of your life, is that
Yep.
right? After that, you moved to California for a couple years, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Tell the board a little bit about what you learned and what you did in California, which relates directly to this hearing, why you want to do what you want to do here.
Yeah, definitely. So, after college, I moved to California. I was over there for about 8 years, and I did various jobs there. I was a team lead at a local cafe, and also took on an apprenticeship at French bakery. And from that experience, I learned a lot about like the baking and the coffee industry, and I want to bring that knowledge to my hometown and share that with the community.
And the opportunity then came up to acquire 438 Oley Street, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And so you, approximately this past spring of 2024, acquired 438 Oley Street, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
For reference, members of the board, the deed is part of the application, so we're not going to provide you with another copy today. But Mr. Chu, you own that individually in your own name, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, I've showed you what's been marked for purposes of identification as Exhibit A1. And A1 consists of 2 pages. And I think the board is probably familiar with this property. It's pretty visible along Park Road, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And so these would be Google Earth pictures of the property in question, is that right?
Yes.
And showing the parking areas, and then the last picture, the 4th picture on the 2nd page, is a Google aerial view showing the location of the building in relation to Park Road and Oley Street. Is that fair?
Yes.
And is it slightly unusual that the building is located tight into the corner of Park Road and Oley Street, and all of the parking is to the rear and to the side?
Yes, yeah.
However, that property is about 0.38 acres, am I right?
Yes.
It is located in the C3 zoning district. Is that fair?
Yeah.
And we've already discussed a little bit about the fact that the bakery, the cafe that you want to establish here, your understanding is that is permitted use. Is that fair?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, I'd like you to tell the board a little bit about what you intend to bake and what those products would be that would exist on the property.
Yes.
And if you have any samples, we'd be happy.
I should have
Mr.
brought some.
Optimal, I
Yeah.
should have thought ahead about that one.
So while I was in California, the French bakery mostly specialized in macarons and puff pastries, fruit tarts, cakes, and stuff like that. And it's kind of I want to kind of do the same thing here because I know it's like the cafes are here are more like more of a breakfast joint. So I want to serve like good local coffee from local roasters, as well as do macarons, cakes, cookies, brownies. Yeah.
And so the concept is to pair the local coffees with the home baked, your own personal creations of baked goods. Am I right?
Yes, that's correct.
And then there's also going to be a sit-down area as well. And what's your thought process with that? Is it a place for people to gather a little bit?
Yeah, I definitely do want the area to be a very cozy environment where people or where professionals and students can come and do some work, drink some coffee, do some studying around, because I know there isn't that many places that offer that type of environment.
The Exhibit A2 that I have marked, and we have the second page of that up on the screen. So Exhibit A2, you've actually commissioned an architect to put together some drawings, is that right?
Yes.
And the first page is obviously the cover sheet. The second page, which is shown on the screen right now, is that the existing conditions plan of the first floor?
Yes, that's correct, yeah, what it looks like right now.
So since you bought the property in spring of 2024, you haven't really changed anything or made any improvements, is that right?
No.
Michelle, are you able to change to the next page, A101, please? Perfect. So what Michelle is now showing you on the screen, which is A101 of Exhibit A2, is this your current rendering of what the build out of the bakery would look like when you were completed with construction, after getting all permits and approvals?
Yes, yeah.
The one thing I want to point out is that from the exterior standpoint, there will be some changes with respect to, and Michelle, if we can scroll down just a hair, along Park Road, I'm sorry, let's go up, my fault. You're adding an ADA ramp, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And then there's an ADA parking spaces that will be delineated in the actual parking lot, which to my knowledge are not there delineated now.
No.
So obviously one of the things that we'll have to work through is getting ADA compliance. With the exception of that ramp, which is along Park Road, which you can see on Exhibit A2, are there any other material or significant exterior changes planned for the property?
No. Just the ramp where the entrance of the cafe will be.
Perfect. The first floor, based on the architect's renderings, is approximately 1,288 square feet, is that right?
Yes.
And so Michelle has now moved to page A102, and is that your depiction currently of the ADA ramp along Park Road?
Yes.
And you're going to retain the existing steps that go out into the parking lot, is that right?
Yes. Yep.
If we could just go back to the prior page, please. Perfect. And so the little cafe area we were talking about, is that towards the top of the building? Show the seating shown there?
Yeah, that's the general idea, where the main lobby will be.
And so there's cafe seating there, and then there's also cafe seating in the lower left-hand corner of the building as well.
Yes.
And then what do you have in the right-hand side?
The right-hand side would be like the main kitchen area where I would do a lot of the baking and the consignment.
I do want to point out while we're looking at this picture, this rendering of Exhibit A2, page A101, that you can see a staircase coming in from the right-hand side of the property, or from the right-hand side of the building. Is that right?
Yes.
And so is that the staircase that goes to the second floor?
Yes, that's the staircase that goes up to the second floor.
All right, we'll hold that thought for just a second. So with respect to the cafe and the bakery portion, at your maximum employment, would you expect how many employees possibly?
3 to 4 during one shift.
What hours are you suggesting for the cafe bakery?
7 a.m. to 4 p.m.
All right, we talked about the exterior modifications to the ADA ramp. Now, you're understanding is that there are approximately 18 spaces already existing on this property, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And so this property has actually a little bit more parking than you would think and what you typically find for a facility like this, is that right?
Yes.
The parking calculation that we ran would require one space for every 200 square feet of area. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
And so that equates to 7 spaces. And then you would also still have plenty of spaces for employees and patrons.
Yes.
All right. So if we can then scroll to the next page, please. Now,
Just one
Mr.
more,
Chu.
Mr. Cook.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Bob.
Some weird.
Bob, we're getting a lot of feedback still. Can you mute your phone?
Yeah. What kind of, you want to call me again? What kind of feedback do you get?
Just
Feedback.
noise, white noise.
Yeah.
A lot of noise, yeah.
Might be me.
Thank you, okay.
All right, so Mr. Chu, then what we're gonna take a look at is, and this is Exhibit A2, and this is the last page that Michelle had up previously, and this shows the second floor and the architect's proposed plan for the second floor apartment, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
The expected square footage right now is about 810 square feet on that apartment, right?
Yes.
And the apartment would have a dedicated entrance, which we just talked about a little bit earlier, coming up that staircase, which would access from the Oley Street side,
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
And the primary entrance or the other entrance to the cafe would be from the parking lot out where the ramp and the staircase is on the other side of the building.
Yes, that's correct. Over in North Park.
So if you can tell the board a little bit about the proposed apartment. Are you proposing a 1-bedroom apartment?
Yes. Upstairs is pretty spacious for a 1-bedroom apartment. It has all the accommodations for bathroom, kitchen, washer and dryer.
All right, we talked about the fact that it will have a separate entrance. And can you tell the board a little bit about the reason for your request for that second floor apartment?
Yeah. Main reason to have the second floor apartment is just so there could be some passive income that comes to help offset some of the bills for the cafe, utilities, stuff like that. And I know a lot of businesses on Penn Avenue are similar in that structure, where it's a business on the first floor and then apartment on the second floor.
Do you believe that the addition of an apartment to this building would be negative or detrimental to the surrounding properties in any way?
No.
You've indicated that you are only interested in a 1-bedroom apartment, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Would you be willing to limit the number of vehicles that would be assigned to that apartment to 2 vehicles?
No. Yeah, I'm open to that.
And that's the number of unit or the number of parking spaces that is required for a residential unit, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So even when you add together the required 7 units, 7 parking spaces for the bakery and cafe, and then the two spaces for the proposed apartment, that's 9, is that right?
Yes.
So you still have more than enough parking in your estimation for the business that you're proposing?
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to add for the board, Mr. Chu?
No. That's pretty much covers it.
I have no further questions. Mr. Becker, Mr. Chairman.
John?
This apartment, if it gets approved, would be obviously subject to all the permitted uses in terms of number of occupants, so forth.
It would be bound by any other township or borough ordinances.
Right,
Yes,
right.
yes, yes.
Yeah, Mr. Landis, we would have no problem stipulating that we would comply with all other codes and requirements. And it's our belief at this point, subject to a code review, that the unit would comply with every other requirement from a dimensional standpoint, area standpoint, parking standpoint, other than the actual use under Section 522.
What's there now?
Nothing right now. The previous owner was planning to open, I believe, a daycare, but that fell through, and they decided to sell the property. And then once it was on the market, my realtor gave me a list like, oh, this seems like a good place to open a cafe bakery because it has all the zoning qualification for that. So yeah, and then me and my family decided to buy it last spring. So.
And on the second floor?
Second floor, it seems like the previous owner probably lived there, but wasn't like renting it out or anything. Just like, yeah.
There was back and forth, you may recall Brandon Dislop was the previous owner. She came to the zoning hearing board, I believe 2 years ago for special exception approval for the daycare. During the course of her building permit application and fit out, she claimed that the second floor was already set up as an apartment. There was an extensive and exhaustive review of all borough permit records, approvals for the property. There was never a certificate of occupancy issued for it to be an apartment. My guess is when it was owned prior to Rena by, it was a veterinarian office.
Friends Animal Hospital.
Thank you, yes. It sounds like ownership at that time may have put an illegal apartment or living space up there from the kitchen and everything else that was in place, but it was never approved by the borough.
So it's actually outfitted as an apartment right now?
From what I was told when Brina owned it as part of the inspection process for the building permit, it looked like there was at least the setup for a kitchen, potentially a sleeping area, something along those lines.
You were in it, Nick?
I was not.
You were not.
Anderson was the zoning officer at that time.
Oh, okay. Becker?
Yeah, I have just a couple of questions. Mr. Chu, I thought I heard you say that the area, if you go back, Michelle, to A100, I think it was, or maybe 101, it was where it showed the C. Yeah, there you go. In the lower right-hand corner of that diagram, which is, I think it's the exhibit A2, it's the page that's marked A101. At the bottom right-hand side, that's the area where you're going to be doing your baking. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct.
Did I hear you say something about consignment?
Or like where I would put the counter space to sell like coffee and stuff like that.
Okay, so that's where you're going to have your product.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know if you're bringing in other product.
No, just like where I would sell like my baked goods, and then where
Got it.
the register would be.
Understood. Okay. And you would be setting that up as a commercial bakery, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
I think that's all I have.
It would be a mix of commercial and retail? Your operation?
Possibly. Mostly commercial. Yeah.
I think most likely retail sale of baked goods is what
Yeah.
it would kind of come under.
Well, the reason I brought it up is the cafe area. If you're anything like Starbucks, you might have people sitting in there for 4 hours on their laptops. And in terms of a parking situation, if a whole bunch of people sat in there for several hours, you had more and more people coming in. I don't know if the parking is that, maybe it is, but
Under zoning it is.
pardon me?
Under the zoning.
Oh, yeah, no, I know it is, yeah, okay. Well, I think it's very gracious of you to have people sitting in your establishment all that time, because,
They actually make the chairs uncomfortable.
you do what Dozy Do does, yeah, exactly. But anyway.
Anything else from the board?
No, sir.
Did we do our homework in this for Mrs. Wagner?
I guess we can ask if there's anything specific she wants to know.
Is there anything that you would like to add or question or anything that we can still say for you?
I have a couple questions about parking. Do you plan on using both entrances of your parking lot?
So
There's one on Oley Street
Yeah.
and one on Parker.
yeah, so the one on Oley Street, it's on the exit only currently. So the main entrance would be the North Park, on North Park Road. That'll be the main entrance for the cafe venture.
Okay, and where is your overflow parking going to be?
Overflow, that'll be within the parking space. There is like, will be right across from the building.
On that block right on Oley Street?
Yes.
Okay, it is marked no parking on that block.
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
the one, it's still within the property.
So I think what you're saying, Mr. Chu, is you'd be parking within the 18 spaces on the
Yeah.
property.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
If you would need overflow parking, where would you encourage your customers and students to go?
I'm going to object to that, Mr. Becker. I mean, we provided more than
Yeah,
enough parking.
I don't think that's,
I don't think it's
I don't think that's relevant. If that becomes an issue, that would be something that would be taken up by the police department if they were trespassing or doing something on somebody else's property. Right, they're looking for parking, right.
Okay, so safety concerns are not a concern, okay. How do you plan on preventing customers from going the wrong way on Oley Street out of your parking lot?
I will provide signage.
There is signage from the borough.
Okay, so I think he answered the
He's
question.
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah. Okay. Who governs or licenses you from the state?
From the bakery standpoint,
Yes.
is there any license that you're required to have from a baking standpoint?
Other than my LLC and like a food safety certificate, I have those.
So you don't need any other licenses or anything like that?
Only once we start opening like the building, then we'll need like the commercial license.
You would need the Department of Ag
Yeah.
Food Safety and also a business privilege license
Yeah.
through Works EIT.
And you would get all of those licenses as necessary?
Yes.
That's all I have at this time.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, housekeeping.
All right, so let's start with Michelle. Michelle, in your capacity as the secretary for the zoning hearing board, what are your duties and responsibilities?
I prepared a public notice that was advertised in the Running Eagle on December 25th and January 1st. Say December 25th of 2024 and January 1st of 2025. That same notice was posted on the subject property on December 16th, 2024 at approximately 11:30 a.m. And it was mailed to all of adjoining property owners located within at least 300 feet on December 16th, 2024 at approximately 9:45 a.m.
And do you have a copy of those documents with you?
I do.
The one goes as board exhibit number 1. As the secretary of the zoning hearing board, do you have any further information for this particular application?
I do not. Do you want me to enter the
Yes,
application?
we'll do that next. So do you have a copy of the application with you this afternoon?
I do.
All right, we'll mark that as board exhibit number 2. I understand, Mr. Cuff, that there are some exhibits that you presented that are overlapped that are included with that application. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, we will still refer to those that you presented as applicants' exhibits as you mark them A1 and A2. Michelle, is there anything further that you have for the board as secretary for the zoning hearing board today?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, Nick, you've been previously sworn in your capacity as the zoning officer for the borough. What are your duties and responsibilities?
I reviewed the zoning hearing application and prepared the memo that was sent to the zoning hearing board dated December 2nd, 2024.
Is that the memorandum that the chairman read into the record a little earlier today?
It is, yes.
And you have a copy of that with you today?
I do.
We'll mark that as board exhibit number 3. In your capacity as a zoning officer for the borough, do you have any other information that you believe relevant or should be submitted to the board today?
Not at this time.
Thank you very much. Michelle, back to you just for a moment. I should have asked you this question. What zoning ordinance is in effect at the time of the application?
The one that was printed January of 2022.
All right, well, we're going to mark that as board exhibit number 4. We're not going to move that into evidence, but we're going to take notice of that zoning ordinance as the relevant zoning ordinance for this application. Mr. Cuff, do you have any objections to the exhibits that we've placed into the record?
No.
Thank you. Those exhibits will be moved into the record. That is-
Bob Bob, I overlooked you. Do you have anything that you would like to question or add?
No, Thank you for asking.
Bob, you sound like a robot. Can you repeat that?
Oh, you can hear that? I don't know. Any questions?
He doesn't
All right,
have any questions,
yeah,
but
I
thanks
think
for
you said,
asking.
yeah, he doesn't have any questions. Michelle, why don't we try a different line for him? We can just maybe use,
Bob, I'm gonna try calling you back from my
Were
cell
you able
phone.
to hear that?
no, it's bad.
I'm gonna call you, Bob, I'm gonna call you back from my cell phone. Goodbye.
It's a pretty good invitation.
Yeah.
It should have better reception.
There you go.
Listen.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi,
There
Bob.
you go.
That's better. Shocking.
Okay, now that we got to that point, I think that we have everything in order to go into recess.
Well, no, I think we want to let Mrs. Schweiger
Oh,
make
I'm sorry.
make some comments or statements.
Okay.
But let me just do this first. Bob, just for the record, just so it's clear, I think you said earlier that you could hear everything that we were talking about very clearly. Is that accurate?
That is true, yes.
Okay. And at this point, do you have any questions for the applicant?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you, Bob. All right, so at this point, I think we're ready,
Mr. Chairman, do we move the admission of our exhibits?
Mr. Sure.
Thank you. And then we would rest.
Ms. Swigert, anything further that you would like to add?
I just hope, being a Wyomissing resident and understanding the passion that you have for your community growing up in this area, that you would have the same understanding of the other homeowners in the area that have been kind of thrown into the commercial realm of the borough. And I hope you have the same respect for us that we will have for you, and understand the parking and the one-way streets, and take responsibility for your customers when they are in the area.
Thank you. With that, we'll go into recess and see if we can reach a conclusion, if you all will excuse us.
Sure.
Wyomissing Zoning Hearing Board back to order. Is there a motion?
Yes. I move that we grant the request of Quang Chu for variance from section 522 and section 601 of the Wyomissing Zoning Ordinance, subject to the terms and conditions to be placed on the record by our solicitor.
Thank you, Bob. And those conditions would be as follows. It would be one apartment unit only. There'll be no expansion of any apartment unit beyond that without coming back in for additional discussion or relief from the zoning hearing board. Next condition will be that there will be 2 parking spaces that will be designated, only 2 parking spaces for the apartment. And those parking spaces must be signed and marked reserved for the apartment units so that we have it clearly designated so others are not parking in those spaces. The next will be the kind of our standard conditions, which are you're going to be bound by all of the testimony, exhibits, and application which have been presented today. Next is that you comply with all the requirements and regulations of the borough ordinances, codes, rules, and regulations, which includes making sure that you obtain the rental permit and make sure you comply with the biannual rental inspections that are required. Next is that you'll apply and pay for all permits that are needed, which would include those permits for the construction and as well as for the bakery, to the extent you need Department of Ag permits and things of that nature. Make sure you have all of those in place. Next one is you comply with all state and federal laws, rules, and regulations as well. Next is that you will not otherwise alter the property or expand the property without seeking further relief from the zoning hearing board. Next one is that the relief that's granted must be implemented within 1 year from the date of the written decision. And then failure to comply with any of that relief or those conditions could result in revocation of your zoning.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried, relief is granted, and our business is finished.
Thank you.
We thank everybody for their time this afternoon. Really appreciate it. So, have a good
Thank you.
afternoon.
And good luck.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Hope to see you guys there soon.
So make some bear claws.
Can you make a bear
Oh
claw?
yeah, bear claws are very popular here.
You'll have a customer come in.
Might have to
We're
drop
close,
off a
man.
sample at the